number, I think, 27 to win the Royal Rumble match in 2010. I was really expecting The Undertaker to pull a surprise entry into the Royal Rumble. It was either going to be Undertaker or Randy Orton pull a surprise entry in the Royal Rumble, and preferable, rather than Roman Reigns going to WrestleMania to face Brock Lesnar, I would have preferred to see The Undertaker or even Randy Orton face Brock Lesnar. The Undertaker wins his second Royal Rumble match, joining the list that has the likes of John Cena, Batista, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Hulk Hogan, Shawn Michaels on that list. Batista becoming, I think, the fifth man in the history of the Royal Rumble to win two Royal Rumble matches, and I really thought The Undertaker was going to become the sixth on that list to sort of pull the impossible out from under the rug, go to WrestleMania, face Brock Lesnar, and defeat Brock Lesnar for the championship to rekindle his loss at the hands of Brock Lesnar, losing his streak. He had a bit of vengeance after what happened to him last year, because it really was a travesty of justice, a miscarriage of justice, better said in the words of Gorilla Monsoon. Nobody said it better than Gorilla Monsoon. A miscarriage of justice definitely defines what happened to The Undertaker last year at WrestleMania. In my opinion, The Undertaker should have defeated Brock Lesnar, because as a wrestling fan, speaking from the perspective of a wrestling fan, we waited 20 years and saw The Undertaker defeat over 10 world champions, a decade worth of world champions during that streak, just to see Brock Lesnar be the man to defeat The Undertaker. I respect the fact that Brock Lesnar has never lost a match to The Undertaker in their history, going back as early as the early thousands. From 2002 to 2004, we didn't see Brock Lesnar lose a single match for the title to The Undertaker, because every match they had was for the championship. And because of their personal history outside of the wrestling business, which goes as far as the UFC, and The Undertaker attending UFC matches for Brock Lesnar, where he watched Brock Lesnar compete inside the octagon, because of a personal history, they had a lot of tension, and that tension was carried over into their match at WrestleMania 30. I really didn't expect, even though I respect the fact that Brock Lesnar never lost a match in his career to The Undertaker, that The Undertaker was going to lose to Brock Lesnar. So I am with the over 75,000 fans that were in the Superdome last year for WrestleMania 30. Did not want to see The Undertaker lose that match for 1 second, but that's what we were faced with, and it got so much media attention. So the purpose of The Undertaker versus Bray Wyatt, in my opinion, is completely defeated. And how pathetic are these promos going to continue to get until The Undertaker gives Bray Wyatt an eventual response? That's inevitable, that The Undertaker will give Bray Wyatt a response to these promos. It will happen as early as 3 weeks prior to WrestleMania 31, which we are not up to yet. We have to get Fastlane out of the way. Once Fastlane is out of the way, 3 weeks prior to WrestleMania 31, that's when I'm expecting that Bray Wyatt will get a response to these promos. But how pathetic are these promos going to continue to get until The Undertaker gives Bray Wyatt the response and the answer that he wants to a match that he's issued The Undertaker a challenge for at WrestleMania 31? Bray Wyatt will not achieve anything by defeating The Undertaker at WrestleMania 31, or I should say facing The Undertaker at WrestleMania 31, because this is just going to signify the return of The Undertaker leading up to his eventual final match against Sting as early as WrestleMania 32 the following year in 2016. That's pretty much what this match will signify. Even if Bray Wyatt did knock off The Undertaker, which he has no chance of doing, because we already saw The Undertaker lose at WrestleMania, it would be deja vu all over again if The Undertaker did lose to WrestleMania and they turned it around from being on a win streak for over 20 years, and then all of a sudden The Undertaker loses every match he was in at WrestleMania leading up to his final match against Sting at WrestleMania 32. That would be an interesting scenario, because that would be kind of interesting how they would go about, The Undertaker making the decision to have his final match, because he was on a losing streak and he realized that he was mortal like every other superstar in WWE, but I don't see that happening. If anything, this match with Bray Wyatt will just signify the return of The Undertaker and build up to something bigger. So Bray Wyatt is kind of just being thrown in the ring against The Undertaker just to give The Undertaker an excuse to return and give The Undertaker someone to compete against at WrestleMania, because he's described and put over for many years over all the time as the greatest WrestleMania performer in WrestleMania history. That is the best way of describing The Undertaker. Michael Cole could not have said it better. He said this about Brock Lesnar when he returned in 2012. He said the complexion of the WWE had drastically changed in less than 24 hours after WrestleMania back in 2012. And he said, you are looking at the greatest WrestleMania performer 2 years after that in 2014, before the match between The Undertaker and Brock Lesnar kicked off, and we heard the opening bell. You are looking at the greatest performer in WrestleMania history, referring to The Undertaker and everything he had accomplished during his streak, defeating over a decade of world champions and a list of Hall of Famers and future Hall of Famers. Definitely matches The Undertaker had at WrestleMania paved the way for people like Randy Orton and others to go on and make a name for themselves in their WWE career. If not for that one definitive WrestleMania match The Undertaker had with those individuals like Randy Orton probably wouldn't have been as big as a superstar as one he is now in 2015. I mean, that match really defined what Randy Orton is really all about now and his character in WWE. So definitely people who have faced The Undertaker at WrestleMania have come a drastic long way. The image of these wrestlers have drastically changed over the years, and the matches they had with The Undertaker back in the years of WrestleMania, a streak where The Undertaker defeated every single member of Evolution from Triple H right through to Ric Flair. Nobody else has ever done that at WrestleMania. Nobody else has ever faced people like Shawn Michaels and Triple H in back-to-back matches, 4 matches in total, and defeated both Shawn Michaels and Triple H back-to-back at WrestleMania. I mean, who else can say that? During their supposed undefeated streaks at WrestleMania, which at one time was held by Edge, until Edge lost his first WrestleMania match to The Undertaker back at WrestleMania 24 in 2008. So many people have tried to maintain an undefeated streak at WrestleMania, which makes me wonder, who's going to be the next one? Bray Wyatt, possibly? No way in hell that's ever going to happen. So many people have tried to maintain a undefeated streak at WrestleMania, but nobody's been able to duplicate a streak like The Undertaker, and that is a streak, ladies and gentlemen, that will never be duplicated, in my opinion, because I've seen virtually every match The Undertaker has had during this streak. The WrestleMania Anthology, which goes from WrestleMania 1 through 21, is a good perspective on how many matches The Undertaker has had and how many challenges he's had from the Big Boss Man to Randy Orton at WrestleMania, going up to WrestleMania 21 in 2005. It's a good retrospective on what The Undertaker has accomplished during his streak, because nobody else has ever done it, and it's something that will never, ever be duplicated. One interesting thing they said, because this is why I really believe having The Undertaker versus Bray Wyatt at WrestleMania, the purpose has really been defeated. One interesting thing they said in the closing moments of the match when The Undertaker stood up and got a standing ovation from the over 75,000 fans in the Superdome last year in 2014 was that The Undertaker was mortal. I think it couldn't have been put into perspective in any better way than by describing The Undertaker as immortal for all these years at WrestleMania and being the greatest performer in WrestleMania history, then from going from that to describing him as mortal, because that's really what The Undertaker became. So that's why I think this match's purpose with Bray Wyatt has completely been defeated. The only one who will achieve anything in this match is really nobody, because if Bray Wyatt faces The Undertaker, Bray Wyatt will not be put over in this match. He'll just be known as the guy who was the latest victim of The Undertaker at WrestleMania and The Undertaker's 22nd victim at WrestleMania. His record will go from 21-1 to 22-1, which would be really stupid. I mean, how stupid does that sound if The Undertaker defeats Bray Wyatt? Even if he defeats Bray Wyatt and his return is known throughout WWE, I mean, how stupid is it going to sound? 21-1 actually makes sense. But just listen to this, 22-1. How stupid does that sound? So really, is there a purpose for this match? Another thing, too, that really gets me about this match and why I don't really want to see The Undertaker versus Bray Wyatt, as much as a fan of The Undertaker as I've been for pretty much my whole life that I've been a wrestling fan, is because there's not enough time to create anything in the way of a meaningful storyline for The Undertaker versus Bray Wyatt. If you had about a month and a half, maybe 2 months even, to create something for The Undertaker versus Bray Wyatt, then this match would make more sense, because you could have psychological mind games being played by both Bray Wyatt and The Undertaker, where let's say Bray Wyatt comes up to the ring one week on The Undertaker and then The Undertaker pops out of a casket. You could have a lot of psychology put on its finest display. Wrestling psychology is very important in a feud with people like The Undertaker and Bray Wyatt, because you look at someone like The Undertaker as one of the greatest wrestling psychologists next to Jake the Snake Roberts and some wrestling psychologists' finest. You look at him as one of the greatest wrestling psychologists of all time, and you would expect Bray Wyatt to have mastered wrestling psychology, maybe not as good as The Undertaker, but to have a master's degree at this point in his career of wrestling psychologist, or at least have an understanding of it. So you would expect to see wrestling psychologists versus wrestling psychologists. Yeah, and I really think that wrestling psychology is very important in this feud. We need to see something more happen than just promos. We need to get The Undertaker showing up on Monday Night Raw, which he'll do as early as the first Raw after Fastlane and the fallout of the Fastlane pay-per-view. You can't leave it up to Sting to be the wrestling psychologist against Triple H and be the replacement of The Undertaker, as many people would want to believe that Sting is the replacement of The Undertaker. You can't always leave it up to Sting, because he's had so many eras of his career, just as The Undertaker's had, the metamorphosis from the Phenom to the American Badass to the Dead Man. I mean, we've seen the metamorphosis of the character, and we've seen the metamorphosis of Sting's character over the years. So you can't leave it up to Sting, because it's not always that Sting is the best at wrestling psychology. He's been good at wrestling psychology in this feud with Triple H trying to play these mind games with Triple H leading up to their eventual match at WrestleMania 31, which is obviously inevitable, just as The Undertaker's return is against Bray Wyatt or somebody else, even if it isn't Bray Wyatt, and Bray Wyatt isn't referring to The Undertaker in these promos, which obviously he is. I mean, one promo that really gave it away for me was how Bray Wyatt was questioning where we go when we die, and he was asking where someone was, and he was asking for that individual, whoever he was referring to find him. And I think who he was asking to find him was The Undertaker, because The Undertaker really fits the Bray Wyatt character. And who can't say that The Undertaker versus Bray Wyatt was a dream match of yours at some point when you first laid eyes on the Bray Wyatt character? When I first saw Bray Wyatt as the leader of the Wyatt family, and he had these supposed worshippers with these supposed followers with these cell phones that light up every time during the Bray Wyatt entrance, I said The Undertaker is the first major opponent for Bray Wyatt. And we never did see it. We never did see it at WrestleMania 29 or 30. But why didn't they have it? Why did they put Bray Wyatt in the ring with John Cena? Obviously because they wanted to put someone else in the ring with Bray Wyatt, because they wanted to get the streak out of the way. And I think that if the streak were still alive, I think that would have been perfect. I think it would have been perfect to see Bray Wyatt challenge the Undertaker's streak at WrestleMania. Let's reverse it. Let's say the Undertaker's streak didn't end last year at WrestleMania and it was still alive for WrestleMania 31. Then this match would have a purpose, because Bray Wyatt would be challenging The Undertaker for his streak no matter if he won or if he lost, and leading up to an eventual match with Sting, where Sting would have been the one to end The Undertaker's streak. That's something else that really frustrates me. Sting comes in the year, The Undertaker loses his streak to Brock Lesnar. I mean, where does